Welcome to the Peep Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Maroc, and before we get started, I wanted to give you a quick reminder that at the time of this recording, the forum for Interactive Episode 17 is still live. If you haven't done so already, please listen to Episode 17 and fill out the form telling me what you think you hear in the EVP recordings. That form will be live until June 24th, 2021. If you have participated, thank you. Your answers have been recorded along with many others, and so far the results have been interesting. But to make this statistically significant, I really do need more participation. So again, if you haven't, please listen to episode 17 and participate. On this episode, we're talking to a woman who wishes to remain anonymous and shares her personal paranormal stories from working inside a county jail somewhere in North Carolina. We'll call her Sergeant since that's her title and leave it at that. Before we get into the interview, I want to acknowledge that you're going to hear some nervous laughter from me in this one. Some of Sergeant's stories are a bit shocking, and as she shared them, I imagined myself in her position during those experiences. It was actually hard for me to imagine, honestly, and I have a very good imagination. The men and women who work in our detention centers, jails, and prisons don't get enough credit for the work they do. They deal with things on the job that those of us who've never seen the inside of a jail can't fathom, and I want to personally thank Sergeant and all her cohorts for their service. Let's dive in. I did want to ask you about being a good witness, because you said you have done, you've testified before, and so you kind of know along the lines of when something happens suddenly, what can you do mentally to make sure you're like being a good witness, taking down whatever mental notes you need to be able to answer questions about it later?
A lot of it depends on, give me the circumstance.
So, well, I mean, in the case of, say, the paranormal situation, say, you're just going about your business and something strange happens, and it's a really quick, 2-second, maybe a flash of an apparition, and you see it and then it's gone. But if somebody were to come back and ask you, okay, what did you see? The person may be wanting to know, how tall was it? Was it solid? Or did you see any color? Or was it just a shadow? That sort of thing. So in the moment that you see it, is there anything you could do to take those quick mental notes? Is that something that you can prepare for? Or is it just, kind of luck of the draw?
Well, in that type of circumstance, I think it's probably luck of the draw. Usually my biggest thing in anything happens, I always like to document the time. So that's one of my training go-to. Anything happens, I always have to look at the time. It's just second nature for me. Usually, I mean, of course, being able to say exactly what you saw, but, the time, because usually the time for, things like that is important, because, it's not like people say they see stuff during the middle of the day type of thing. Usually those type of things happen that night. Mm-hmm. And I worked night shift for nine years. Wow. So, I mean, it is a lot. And, and seeing stuff, because in a lot of these incidents that I'm going to tell you about, I always had someone else with me, or there was inmates around. So, I mean, it wasn't just me.
Right.
I've had grown men that were killers afraid to go back to their room
Oh my
over
goodness.
incidents. Yeah. So, I mean, not just me. So, I mean, it's good to have more than one person, but of course, that ain't always going to happen.
Right.
But definitely, I just, the time I always think's important, especially if, it's something that continuously happens at that same time over and over again, then maybe next time you end up being more prepared as far as, being able to take pictures,
Mm-hmm.
video, things of that nature. That way, anybody can tell anything. But if you have actual physical proof, then, that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but, unfortunately with, working within a jail, it's not like, can't have your phones in there. You can't really record anything. Um, there was a recording I did try to take at one point when I was in booking, because as a sergeant, I was allowed to have my phone in booking. And I actually just remembered this. I didn't actually have this on my list to tell you about, but there was this guy, and I had known him for years. He'd been coming in and out of the jail. He was a regular, always a normal, young white guy, little guy. He probably maybe 5'2". Like he was a little guy, but have never before ever seen him have any type of mental issues. None whatsoever. Always normal guy, come in, not a problem, would do his little time, leave. But this particular time when he came in, it was a couple days in, and he was normal. Then all of a sudden it's like something, so we had to pull him out of a unit because he was acting so strange. And then if you ever watched a jail show before, have you?
Not
Or a
really.
prison show? Okay.
Not really.
Well, you might have to go and watch one just so you can kind of see the setup, because it's basically the same for most any institution, whether it be a prison or jail. Um, every booking area for a jail or anything like that, they have holding cells in the area. They got one
Okay.
for the females, they got one for the males. They usually have cells that they changed out into the uniforms in before they go to a housing unit. And then there's what they call the drunk tanks. And that's
Sorry.
most of the time what they are.
The first thing I think of is the drunk on Andy
Griffith.
Griffith's
Yeah,
show. Somebody says that. So,
we had our own Otis.
yeah.
We had our own. We called him
Wow.
we called him Boom Boom, and he was hilarious. And but he would come in on an assist. He'd sleep it off and leave in the morning. But one of the cells was detox, and the other one is a padded cell in case you need an extra padded cell. Well, this particular guy ended up in that cell, and he lost his mind in there. But the strangest things to me, and it actually is making the hair stand up on my arms right now talking about this, I went to go look into the cell because it has the flaps where you open it up and look at it in. That way people walking by, other inmates and stuff, can't see them. But there's cameras, constant surveillance inside those cells as well. I'll go to look in there, and I look up, and all I see is his private parts. He done scaled the wall, and
Oh
like
my.
he's at the ceiling, at the top of the cell, like a spider monkey.
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So throughout the night, like, it was the weirdest thing. And like I said, if I can go back and find that recording, because I just recorded like what he was trying to say. He was speaking in tongues.
Oh my goodness.
And he was walking back and forth across the cell on his hands. Like how you would be in a handstand,
Yeah.
walking around the cell on his hands in a handstand fashion.
And
Free
this
walking around the cell, speaking in tongues.
and this was a guy that you'd seen regularly and had never
Never
exhibited
had any
any.
issues, wasn't on any medications for any type of mental illness, no nothing. Like
Wow.
this is completely left field for him. But he was walking in this cell on his hands. And of course, I had other officers in booking and stuff that heard this because we were all freaked out by like because we're in booking with him. Like
Right.
we're stuck with him all night,
Did
and
that,
he's over here walking around on his hands, speaking in tongues.
how long did that last?
He did that off and on for about 3 or 4 days before he finally slept.
Wow. Did you ever get
After
any sort
that,
of explanation out of him?
nope,
Like what triggered it?
nope.
Wow.
Medical staff seen him and everything else. They tried to put him on, a little bit of meds to maybe help him relax, help him sleep, but no history of it. And then he, after he had left out, and when he came back in the next time, he was completely normal again.
Wow.
Yeah, that was strange, but he was speaking in tongues.
That seems that would be extremely unnerving for sure. So there were others that work with you that witnessed it. How did they respond to it?
Several of them thought that he was possessed because, like, he's never had a history. He's never done anything like this before. Like, we're on a first name basis with this guy. He came in so much,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's this, and he's walking around on his hands, scaling the wall. Like, it's a little unnerving, especially in there speaking in tongues, like, and doing growling noises.
Yikes.
Like it
Yeah.
was, and you would have to sit there and listen to him all night, and you have to go over there and do checks on him, keep a check on him. Completely butt naked, doing handstands, growling. It's just okay.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
One
Even my
of
male officers were like, ugh, like, what is wrong with him?
right. I
'Cause,
mean,
we deal with a lot of people, with mental illness, people that are, schizophrenic, all kinds of walks of life. And that is the one and only time I've seen that. In all the 12 years I've been in there dealing with all these people, that's the first I've ever seen that.
was he acting kind of off when he first came in, or like did this happen while he was there?
Happened while, like, he came in fine. It was like a couple days after he had been there. It was like all of a sudden he started acting strange, and we had to pull him from the unit and put him in the cell, which is basically like protective custody due to his behavior.
Hmm.
So, he was in the cell by himself. He was in there for about a week, and then he ended up leaving out. I guess he made bond, or he was released from the courts. But the next time he came in, perfectly normal, like he didn't even remember any of it.
Oh my goodness. So when we talked before, you mentioned that this place had a history of activity, and you had some ideas as to why it might have had some of the activity it did.
There was this particular area, and the downtown and everything has a lot of Civil War history, has a lot of Civil War cemeteries, tons of them throughout the area.
Hmm.
This particular one, half of the jail was built over part of a slave mass grave. They moved a majority of them, but I don't, people say like probably all of it wasn't moved when they broke ground to build that section of the jail. So some of it say it's that, but there's been, throughout the years, a lot of deaths happen in the jail, heart attacks, suicides. Um, and it's only been in certain areas because particularly that section that over that part, and then the oldest part of the jail, which is kind of back from that, and is actually attached to an old church that's been there for over 50 years.
Wow.
So it's a lot of history. And so, especially, with the Civil War, I mean, it's a lot. There's plenty of stuff around with that, but yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. Especially, working night shift, you get to see it all. Some of the ghost gear that I bought that I have now, I would love to take in there.
Yeah.
I wish
Would
I
they
would have
allow
it.
you?
Honestly, I probably wouldn't even say anything. I just go in and keep it vague and not,
Yeah.
because a lot of people because there's in the section that I'm going to talk about first is, four floors on that side. And a lot has happened between those four floors. Like I said, I mean, there's, been inmates due to health issues and stuff that have passed away in there, plus, where it's built at and everything else. On night shift, that's when we do a lot of our stuff as far as like laundry, exchanging, linens, their blankets and stuff out. And
Yeah.
that would be something that would run our whole night shift is, do the first floor and then the second floor. Most facilities, like I said, you might need to watch a jail show. That way you can kind of understand the layout. But it's kind of like the corner of a square. And
Okay.
so at the corner here is going to be a panel. And then you got the two hallways going this way. And right before the ends, you got two stairwells going upstairs.
Okay.
And on the ends of each one, on top and bottom floors, is the doors going out of the unit, which leads to what is a sally port. Every unit in any facility has sally ports. There's two doors going in and out of each unit. That way, when you're transporting inmates and this and that, one door shuts before the next one opens.
Okay.
That way, if something happens, it's a little bit more secure than just one door. Because if they go to unlock one door for an officer, then an inmate can try running out. But now they can't go nowhere because they're stuck in the sally port and the next door is shut. So beside of these doors on the bottom floor, beside of them are 3 showers on each side. Also, where these stairwells are, at the shower areas on the ends, is the only lights that'll end up being on at night after everyone locks in to go to sleep at 11 p.m. So everything else is kind of dark, except for those lights on the bottom floor and the top floor, which is at the top and bottom of the staircases. So on several of these nights, and it's funny because it was both of the same inmates for some of these, and one of them, he was convicted of murder and the other one was convicted of rape. Both of them are in prison doing long sentences. But they were model inmates, and so a lot of people used them to do cleanup and laundry.
Okay.
So these two particular inmates is out with me, and they were doing laundry and everything. Mind you, I'm at the panel. It's not enclosed or anything. You're out in the open. They had cleaned everything, and when they clean the showers, they always flip the shower curtains over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they dry, then they'll pull them back down. They're, plastic shower curtains.
Yeah.
Well, they had cleaned, and they had pulled up a couple chairs. They were about 5 to 6 feet in front of the panel because we were waiting on the laundry cart to come back. And they had been done cleaning for probably over an hour at this point. So the shower curtains are still flipped over, looped through the top. So we're sitting there and we hear a noise. And we all look down towards the end and we're looking at the shower rustling, and like the shower curtain comes out over the top and like stands straight out for about 10 seconds and then drops.
Like when you say straight out, do you mean like perpendicular to the
Yeah,
shower?
like
Wow. Okay.
like completely like straight and then drops.
I got
And
chills.
we're all just sitting there because all three of us, because we heard the noise before it did it, so we're all looking. And it was funny because both of their rooms, they were across from each other, and their rooms were the ones at the end
Oh.
by the shower. And so we're standing, all three of us, sitting there and just staring for a second, like, did that really just happen? And then we all look at each other, and the guy that is a convicted murderer, he's like, I'm not going back to my room. Because both of them were just like, they were older guys.
Yeah.
And they were just like, I ain't going back to my room. Like, I don't know what that was, but I'm not going because that's by my room. But I mean, it was crazy. It was just, and it was about 3 in the morning. It was about 2:33 a.m. And then, like I said, we were doing laundry again another night. It was probably about the same time. And there was this, behind me, behind the thing, is a column that goes all the way up to the ceiling, 2 floors.
Yeah.
And there was a paper there that had been taped there. It was fully taped on all 4 sides, all the way around. It had been there for like a couple of days. And then, as I was sitting there, I had one of the guys in front of me because he was writing a laundry list. And then the other guy was up on the 2nd floor throwing laundry down from the 2nd floor because it's open other than the railing on top.
Yeah.
So both of them are right there. And I hear this noise. I'm like, what is that? This paper had gotten peeled off the wall, flew in the air, like flew around, like tumbling, came over my head and laid perfectly in front of me like I'm reading it. Like I just laid a piece of paper in front of me to read it. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay. And I look up, and the inmate that was standing there doing the laundry list is just looking at me. His eyes are all big, and he's like, I was like, you seen that, right? And then I look up, and the other inmate, he just stopped staring. I was like, you seen that, right? They were like, yeah, we seen that. And I was like, okay. But at this point, it was like they were just getting used to this weird stuff happening in the middle of the night. But that particular area, too, like I said, is very important. Why I told you where the lights or where they are.
Yeah.
Because at night, like you said, you see a shadow out of the corner of your eye. Tons of shadow people in there. Tons. Everyone will be locked in. Everyone is asleep. It'll be 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're sitting there writing. And you know how like how I have my lamp right here. It's like someone walks in front of it, and you see that shadow.
Yes.
And you can hear the footsteps. And you can look up, and it's always on the top floor. So you see that shadow like above you, like going across, like it's walking around the top floor. And then other times, like, because we have, it's the metal steps. There's, steel metal steps.
Yeah.
So when someone goes up and down them, it's a very distinct sound. It's not a sound like an inmate in his room can try recreating. But like you can hear, clunk, clunk, clunk with the metal, like steps are coming down. And here I am thinking another officer came into the unit, and I look over and there's no one there. It's just, someone's coming down the steps. I was just like, oh, hey, how you doing?
I was going to ask if you ever like spoke to whatever it was or acknowledged it.
I always did. Some of the inmates, they would get freaked out about that. I'd be like, no, don't be talking to it. I got to sleep in here. Stop. I'm like, it's in here with you anyway. You might as well say hey.
Right.
Might be better for it if you just talk to it.
It just wants attention.
Yeah. But I mean, there was a lot of that. And we would actually have some officers that would actually be scared to be in that unit after lights out.
Wow.
It would be like, they would ask another officer that was what we call a floating officer. That would just be out and about helping other people. He'd be like, hey, can you come in here and hang out with me for a little bit? Stuff like that. And then every now and then there was like night lights along the wall, but they kind of faced upwards.
Yeah.
We had this one officer, she was terrified in there after lights out. And she would actually, when she would do her rounds, when you walk around, check all the cells, she would actually, instead of sitting at the panel where it's darker, like she would go and stand like underneath these little night lights. And you could sit there and watch her in the control room, and we would have numerous like that. So And then the female officer section, there's like a desk and stuff, and that's on the old part of the jail. And that's where that desk is, there's a unit there that is for female segregation. And a lot of the female officers would not sit back there at night. They would come down to book and they would not stay up there because, there was a desk and stuff because the female, they have a lot of units on that floor. But they would come
Yeah.
to the first floor and then go back upstairs to do their rounds. They wouldn't stay back there because there would be weird noises and voices. Because in that unit way back in the day, and it was even before I even started there, a guy hung himself in that unit.
Oh, yeah.
So, but they say that, there's voices and, stuff like that. And we did have a female inmate there for a while that was back there by herself. And she was another very interesting one. I would say that in her case, she had multiple personalities
Yeah.
and they would have conversations with each other
Okay.
in different voices. So if you sat back there and just listened to her, it would sound like 3 or 4 people all having a conversation together in different voices. It sounded like 3 different people, but it was one person.
That would be pretty wild to experience.
Yeah, she was something. She was definitely something. She was a handful. But that was odd. She really creeped people out, especially with the different voices and stuff. So they would not stay back there when she was back there. Especially when she was back there. But she only came in that one time and I never seen her again. So hopefully she went to a psychiatric hospital. She left on a day I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened to her, but she was nuts. But I've had
So
doors held open for me.
you mean by like unseen hands?
Mhm.
Gotcha.
And a whole housing unit seen it happen.
Wow.
Are very heavy doors. Like they don't get stuck, no nothing like that. Like,
Yeah.
and you get used to hearing the door. Like when you open it and it goes to shut and it has that and then slamming sound.
Yeah.
Because I mean they're very heavy doors. So when you open it, like you get accustomed to hearing it come back before it's shut. I went to go, like, once again, in the Sally port, so it was an outside door. Went to go walk in the front, and it was right at lights out. So all the, it's 11 o'clock at night. All the lights are out, and I was just going in there to do a round, make sure everyone was, quiet, stuff like that. As soon as I go to walk into the Sally port, I notice, hang on, I don't hear that sound. I turn around, and the door's still open. I'm like, if it's one of my officers messing with me, I'm going to kick their butt.
Right.
I walked back out. The door's still open, and I look, and there's nobody there. So I didn't touch the door because I was like, So I walked back in the Sally port, and so some of the inmates on that side of the housing unit that could see through the Sally port and see the door was just like, what's going on? And so I was just standing there for a second, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to finish going in. You can shut the door now. And then all of a sudden it was like, I was like, okay, all right.
That was very gentlemanly of them.
Well, supposedly there's other officers have claimed to see him, but there was a guy that would walk the first floor unit that's down in there. It's another segregation unit. And it has 2 gated doors on the inside and it has 2 sides. And supposedly he would walk up and down doing checks. I don't know if it was an older officer, something like that, but supposedly people had seen it on the camera feed from the control room because it has cameras on both sides. And, they say you vaguely see something going up and down after lights out, like he's doing a check. And supposedly there's a little girl over there. People claim to have seen her. So I don't know where the little girl
What does she do?
plays into this. I think it's probably before jail time.
probably.
maybe dealing with the
I would hope.
land, whatever. But numerous people throughout the years have claimed they've seen this little girl. They've seen her between the first and second floor, but only in that section. But there's a stairwell
Interesting.
right there. Like the sections they see her in is right on top of each other. So it's just that whole little area. There's not a third or a fourth floor on that side, so it's just them two floors. But I have. She's probably the only one I haven't seen, but have heard a lot about. But like I said, female officers don't like to stay back there. So, but the most interesting one is this is the one I was telling you about that we say she's possessed.
Yeah.
Some people may not believe in that, but if they were in this situation and witnessed that firsthand, they would change their mind. She creeped me out worse than the guy with the handstands.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to call her Karen. She was actually maybe mid 40s in that age range. And when she came in, like, she was very talkative, very bubbly, just and just, but she came from an assisted living facility. I thought, she's very, very young and doesn't have any, physical ailments, but, she wasn't from here, from the state. So me being me, I always, especially with the ones that seem to be a little off, I always love the psychology part of it. I always talk to them more like, where are you from? Get a background on to help me understand why they are the way they are.
Right.
That part's always intrigued me, but she took to me pretty quick, and, talking to her and stuff like that, she talked about her dad a lot and that he was in the military. So I would gather from that she was probably, a military brat, probably moved around a lot.
Yeah.
She could be a very pretty woman. She had her head shaved like short almost, kind of like almost like a Sinead O'Connor. But like I said, she could be a very pretty woman. But she was in the unit for a little while and then had to pull her out for safety reasons, and so she was in protective custody. And the section she was in was 4 segregation cells, so she's in a cell by herself. And like I said, she talked about her dad a lot. So I was like, but then there would be other times she was talking about she was the Queen of Sheba.
All right.
But my main thing was like, something's going on like with her dad type of thing. Because then she started exhibiting some pretty bizarre behavior. She started acting out sexually. It was weird. Like, she'd be in her cell butt naked. Like, she would be on her monthly and be spreading it all over the walls.
Oh, my goodness.
Saying that it's going to be for a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But then you would sit there, and even in the midst of all this, talking through the door to her, I could sit there and talk to her, and all of a sudden she would just talk to me. We talk normal. And I'm just like, okay. You're butt naked with blood everywhere, talking to me like a normal person. But it's like she had these moments. And then, which leads up to this one particular morning, I had, sergeant on duty. I was going around giving out, that's when sergeants gave medications at that time. So I would start at 5 a.m. or about 4:30 a.m. really, and make my rounds to each of the unit to give out medications. Well, the female officer that worked that unit was an older lady that was with me. For the female stuff like that, I always wanted a secondary, just as a safeguard, since I was given medication. So we get to her cell, and like I said, it's like 4:30 in the morning, and I look through her window, and she's just standing like naked in the middle of her cell, and she's just standing there staring. I'm like, okay. I was like, okay, Karen, you going to take your meds? Yeah. So I open the door, and the whole time my officer's like 3 feet behind me, like, so I just,
Yeah.
I step in, pour the medicine in her hand. I was like, okay, we'll get you some water out of your sink. You got a cup over there. This is just a small cell. So she turns around, the sink and everything's maybe 2 feet behind her. She takes her meds, turns back around, comes back to the center of the room, just standing there. And I was like, are you okay? You need anything? She's like, oh, I'm fine. Da, 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 da. And she starts talking about something else. And you know what? I was like, let me ask her about her dad. I was like, because something is off there. So I was like, were you in the military also? And she was like, no. I was like, so your dad was in the military? And it was like, and as soon as I said the word dad, it creeps me out talking about it. She's literally, like I said, she's standing naked, just standing there, arms by her side, everything else. As soon as I say that, her head drops. Her eyes roll back in her head, and a man's voice comes out.
Oh, what?
That's not a voice like that she could try. There's no way she could have faked that voice. Like, it was a deep, gruff man's voice. I don't even remember what it said, because I was just like, I was stunned. I'm just standing there
Yeah.
stunned, and the door's still open. And I mean, literally, her head dropped, like her eyes are nothing but whites, and just I'm just
Wow.
like, and the female officer that was with me grabs me by the collar on the back of my neck and yanks me like 3 feet backwards, talking about, let's get the out of here. Slams the door
Right.
shut. And she's like, oh, hell no, we got to go. Like, we ain't doing this.
That seems like a pretty natural, logical response.
To be there and see it is completely something else. And as a matter of fact, the control room officer, because there's intercom buttons in each cell,
Yeah.
even though they cannot see inside of those cells, they can see the main part, the Sally port area that we're in, that's outside the cell. So they seen her snatch me back and slam the door, but they also heard it over the intercom. Because normally when, PCs or something like that back there, if I have to open the door, usually the control room officer, keeps eyes on you and turns on that intercom to listen in case there's an issue, because you might get yanked off camera as, as a safety precaution. So they heard it too, and they were like, what's going on? So after we came out of there, they they beeped on a different intercom and was like, who the hell is back there? I thought that was a female section. It was a male officer. So he was like, I thought that was a female section. I was like, that was a female. I was like, I don't know what else is in there with her, but it's a female. He was like, that was a man. I was like, yeah, it was. Whatever is in her, I'm sure it is. But I mean, we
Oh
stayed
my
freaked
goodness.
out for the rest of our shift over that. Like, I could call her right now and she will tell you verbatim the exact same thing. And I haven't seen her in probably 5 years, and she tell you the exact same story.
I believe it.
Like it, I mean, I got chills. All my hair is standing up now just remembering that. But that was probably the worst of the worst that I've seen as far as that's concerned. Between that and the handstand guy,
So
but
when crazy things happen there, do you have to write up reports or put it in writing in some way, or is it just okay, we're just not going to talk about this again?
it depends. usually, for that, no, that's just something that is imprinted in us for the rest of our lives, because that is
Yeah.
definitely was a very, very special moment. Because, like I said, there is no way that she could have distorted her voice that much to sound like a completely different person, a man. And to do that with the eyes rolling back in the head, I mean, it was just like body language, everything just stopped. Like everything changed in a split second. It was just after that, the female officer that was with me, she would not go back there and open her door for no reason whatsoever unless someone else went with her.
That's understandable.
I mean, that's why I say, people don't believe in possession, but I do. Because I think she definitely,
Yeah. There was something going on there.
yeah, between, like I said, her and the other guy, um, like I said, I'll have to try to find that video, the audio clip of him. I've switched phones since then, so it may not have made it onto this one. But if I find it, I'm gonna have to send it to you because you can. Part of it's a little bit garbled because I was recording outside the door, but I'm like, ain't no one gonna believe this. Like he's in there like growling and speaking in tongues. Like, who does this?
Right.
Because I mean, I've seen, like I said, some crazy, crazy stuff, but those two, yeah, they had something else in them. They really did. Because, like I said, that you really had to be there. That was just something else.
So when the other officer pulled you back and you slammed the door, did you stand there or did you hightail it out of there? Like did you stand there and look for a moment at what was going on?
She basically dragged me out of the unit.
Okay.
That one of the outside doors is right there by her door, so it was kind of like a snatch and grab because the hallways back there are dark because lights are out. So I guess she was she was ready to go and she wasn't going by herself. But yeah, she definitely took me with her because I mean I was just frozen. I was just like, what? Like,
Yeah.
this voice just came out like, what? And like I said, like I was so stunned, like I cannot recall what she said or it said, but it blew me away. Blew me away. That was just, yeah. I
That
truly believe she was possessed.
yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Like I I do believe in possession. I'm Catholic, so I mean, we have exorcists for a reason. I don't think it's rampant and it's everywhere but I think there are situations where it is not mental illness, it is truly possession. And that sounds like probably
Yeah,
possession.
I mean
Yeah.
I wish I could remember some of the other things she said because this was, oh goodness, that was probably 7, 8 years ago that happened. But I mean, and I will remember that for the rest of my life because I mean,
Yeah.
that was that was definitely something. But on another particular night, and it was actually kind of, well, it was the next floor up. We had this one unit, and like I said, there's a front and back sally port on every single unit. I started on the unit on the opposite side doing meds, and I was actually with my master deputy. I was actually doing the checks on the females that night, and we had went through the other unit, so we went through the front of that unit, and their sally ports are across from each other. We went through the other one and came out the back and then went into the back of the other one. This one inmate, he was on the top bunk at the front. And the sally port's probably maybe 25 feet because there's like tables and the showers. And he had been up all night. So it wasn't like he was dreaming or, half asleep or anything like that. He was the only one awake in that unit. And he had been up all night he had his radio and listening to music, and he was writing letters to, numerous family members or whatever. Because I would check, I asked him if he was all right every time I walked through. But that's all he was doing. He was being quiet. He was just up by himself writing letters. Well, when I came through the back door of the back sally port and I looked, he was sitting straight up in bed and staring at the front sally port. And then he turned and looked at us real quick like, and I'm like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? Because he was like laying on his bed writing letters when I just came through there probably 15 minutes earlier. And he's like, were y'all just in the front sally port? I was like, you just seen us walk through the back sally port. And, this is a young black guy. I actually went to high school with him. And he was never one that I've always known him. He was never one to tell tall tales or anything like that. He was a pretty straightforward guy. He was like, no, seriously, Are y'all playing with me? And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I was like, we just did meds in the other unit, and we just came in here. Like, we walked by that sally port maybe 15 minutes ago. And like I said, young black guy, and he was pale. He was pale.
Wow.
Like, he had no color in his face. Like, he was scared. Because that's why, like, what's wrong? Like, what happened? He was like, no, there was a dude in that front sally port staring at me. Because before you get to the door, and it's a gated door, but it's like crisscross, it's see-through. And then there's like 3 like plexiglass windows. And then the outside door. So he was like, there was a guy that was standing in that window staring at me. He was like, and he was wearing a yellow uniform, like an inmate uniform.
Yeah.
I was like, there ain't nobody there. He was like, no, I swear to God, he was right there. He was like, y'all ain't got someone that didn't rent out the pod, did you? No, I just came from there. Everyone's asleep. Everyone's locked in. Because the yellow uniform is lockdown. That means they did something, their own disciplinary lockdown. So they, lose privileges or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, he was like, there's a guy there in a yellow uniform just staring at me. I was like, we ain't there. But needless to say, he did not go to sleep for the rest of that night. He was awake staring at that front sally port for the rest of that night till the sun came up. But I mean, I believed him because like I said, like he had no color in his face. He was pale. He was terrified.
Yeah.
And it took me 10 minutes for him to be able to get that out. So
wow.
I was like, I guess he's just checking on you. I don't know. They didn't like my sense of humor when it came to that stuff because a lot of them, they believe in it but are terrified of it. Depending on what, culture background they come from, a little bit more superstitious about it than others. But
yeah,
he wasn't having none of it. But just all kinds of things. But I thought it was a lot of fun. Like I said,
the paranormal stuff was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. But sometimes I would mess with them too and kind of egg them on as far as like, with the inmates and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Which, if I had to be locked in a room and crazy stuff was happening, I'd probably feel a little bit differently too. But I mean, it was all in good fun. They laughed afterwards.
Right.
So.
Just a little teasing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very interesting. But as I was saying, the cemetery across, it has the old stone original walls and the black gated door. that will shut,
Yeah.
and it's on the the back side of the facility. So taking a break, go outside and get a little bit of air or whatever. You'd walk out there, and like I said, we've got a church to the left. But I would do this a lot just for the fun of it. But if the gate was left open, I would go over there and shut it. And it was a heavy wrought iron door.
Yeah.
Shut it, it's secure. I check it and everything else. Then I'd go back across and sit down for a little bit, and I'd watch it. Then a few minutes later, back
You would watch
open.
it open.
And we do that several times. And then we've seen it in the middle of the night where you got a camera on the back part, and so you could zoom in and everything else, so we could actually put a camera on the cemetery and the gated door.
Yeah.
And so we would close it, and then in the middle of the night and stuff, you'd be watching it and stuff, and then you'd just watch it open just by itself randomly in the middle of the night. It's like people walking in and out.
So it wasn't the same time every night. It was just random
That
times.
one was random, different times of night, but it could be like when someone would go out and take a break or something, we'd have them close it, and then hour, 2 hours later, it opened back up. So, but like I said, there's an old Civil War cemetery, so it has, it's very unique. Sometimes at night, I'd even go and walk around in the cemetery and just check out everything.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I had the, stone wall that goes all the way around, very old stuff, a lot of early 18th century stuff, early 19th century. So a lot of history there, and those types of cemeteries I think are more beautiful because all the headstones ain't the same. There's some very unique ones. The family plots with the little wrought iron fences.
Yeah.
The little tabletop graves. So
yeah, the historic cemeteries are my favorite. The older they are, the better.
yeah, I think one of the generals or one of the mayors, or I'm trying to remember which one. I should know this as much as I've went over there. But supposedly, one of them's buried there.
I think the sign in the picture you showed me said governor.
Okay, it was a governor.
Yeah.
It was one of them, governor, mayor. But there's a lot of them. And then, like I said, there's numerous of those, throughout the county. So I've always liked them. I used to always go and try to see if I couldn't find like the oldest headstone, all the little family pots, and read all of those. And they always, very unique. Like almost every single one, different quotes on them, pictures, and stuff like that. It's very interesting.
Yeah, you really get a feel for the people and the period that they lived in just by reading those quotes. And sometimes they're biblical, sometimes it's like some random poem that they loved. So I read one it was very long. It was an epitaph for a matriarch of a family, and you could tell that the husband wrote it and he just adored her and was completely crushed, and it was just heartbreaking to read. But it's like, it's been there for 200 years, and that to me is just an amazing tribute to somebody's life.
Oh yeah, definitely. But other than that, that's the main part of the stuff. So but yeah,
I really appreciate you sharing these stories, because they're pretty amazing. Thank you, Sergeant, for sharing your experiences with us. It was an eye-opening conversation. Thanks always to you, dear listener, for listening. If you have an idea for a show topic, you can fill out the contact form at peeppodcast.com. That's PEEP podcast.com. Remember, that stands for People Experiencing Everyday Paranormal. If I can find a study about it, I'll be happy to use it. Also, if you're interested in sharing your own personal stories of paranormal experiences, I'd love to have you on the show. It can be as anonymous as you'd like. You can keep up with the show on its Facebook page, facebook.com/peeppodcast. We also have a growing group linked from that page in case you're interested in joining the conversation over there. After June 24th, we can even start a thread about episode 17 and discuss it to our heart's content. If you like the podcast, please give it some rating love on your favorite podcast app. Share it with friends and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Doing so will also help the podcast be found by others. If you're interested in supporting the show financially, I've set up a Patreon page at patreon.com/NicoleMaroc. Patrons will receive special thanks and some para-nerd perks. You can also look for the Peep Podcast shop at tpublic.com for t-shirts and other merchandise. Those links are also in the show notes. I say it every week because I mean it. No matter how you support the show, listening, telling others about it, Patreon, or sporting a t-shirt, I truly appreciate you being here. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be well.